Pois então, gente, o eclipse passou, foi dito que esse eclipse viria com guerras, terremotos, pestilências e tragédias. Esse eclipse veio com muito detalhe, foi uma mensagem de Deus para o mundo e especialmente para os Estados Unidos. Eu estou fazendo esses vídeos porque eu quero chamar a atenção de vocês com o que está acontecendo aqui e o que vai acontecer, os rumores que estamos vendo de guerra aqui nos Estados Unidos. E então, com a explicação aí do irmão Neville, eu vou deixar o link para que vocês tenham mais conhecimento sobre esse assunto de o Antichristo. Gente, são pessoas famosas, atores que estão já aterrorizados, com medo, planejando a saírem do país por causa deste homem. Realmente, como o eclipse de 2017 teve uma eleição e o país realmente ficou dividido, assim como o eclipse dividiu os Estados Unidos. Gente, realmente é algo preocupante e eu estou observando e quero passar essas informações para vocês, porque é hora já de estarmos preparados. Assistam o vídeo até o final com atenção. Infelizmente eu não pude traduzir, eu coloquei legendado. Deus abençoe a vocês. Shalom.
Aos Tessalonicenses, falando do Anticristo, o homem que viria no final, o espírito que ele teria. Diz aqui, porque já o mistério da injustiça opera. Sabe, o nosso português às vezes, ele deixa a desejar. No original aqui, a palavra usada no grego é anoma ou anomia. Anomia, que significa ilegalidade. Ilegalidade, porque já o mistério da ilegalidade opera. Falando, claro, do campo espiritual, mas também falando dos eventos do tempo do fim. Somente há um que agora resiste até que do meio seja tirado. Então será revelado o iníquo, a quem o Senhor desfará pelo assopro da sua boca e aniquilará pelo esplendor da sua vinda. A esse cuja vinda é segundo a eficácia de Satanás, com todo o poder e sinais e prodígios de mentira, e com todo o engano da injustiça para os que perecem. O que a Bíblia está dizendo? Que quando o Anticristo chegasse, que ele viria com prodígios de mentira, cheio de ilegalidades, mas travestido de verdades, de legalidades, de normas da Constituição e etc. Não vai. Olha, esse camarada, Satanás, é um gênio tão grande que ele consegue pegar uma Constituição, ele consegue entrar nas brechas dessa Constituição, ele consegue quebrar essa Constituição sem transparecer que ele assim está o fazendo, dando um aspecto de legalidade para aquilo que é completamente ilegal. E nós vamos ver nesta noite, o profeta menciona várias passagens, e não se esqueça do título, porque nós vamos voltar lá. Diz aqui, Satanás com todo o poder e sinais e prodígios de mentira, e com todo o engano da injustiça para os que perecem, porque não receberam o amor da verdade para se salvarem. Então eles cairão nessas mentiras. Acreditarão nessas ilegalidades como sendo legalidades. Acreditarão nessas inverdades como sendo verdades. É o que ele faria quando ele viesse. É o espírito por detrás do Anticristo. Dizendo isso, eu quero fazer um comentário. Quando se fala da pessoa do Anticristo, é muito difícil para nós seguirmos o raciocínio bíblico, profético, porque quando fala da pessoa do Anticristo, não é só uma pessoa. Por exemplo, o Anticristo pode se referir ao líder do comunismo, do rei do norte. É o Anticristo. O Anticristo pode se referir ao líder da igreja romana. É o Anticristo. O Anticristo pode se referir ao líder do Conselho Mundial de Igrejas. É o Anticristo. Mas a natureza desse espírito que rege todos esses personagens que surgirão no tempo do fim é o mesmo. Então, se nós olharmos as características do espírito que está regendo, por isso que eu escrevi aqui 5 ditadores nas visões de 33. Por quê? Apesar das bandeiras, ideologias serem distintas uma das outras, eu creio no fascismo, eu creio no nazismo, eu creio no comunismo, o outro dizia, nós cremos no capitalismo, na democracia, mas o espírito era o mesmo, o caráter era o mesmo, os atributos eram os mesmos, a maneira, o modus operandi era o mesmo. Então, quando se fala do Anticristo no tempo do fim, as pessoas se perdem muito facilmente. Por quê? é um espírito do anticristo, é um diabo, mas ele usará vários personagens no tempo do fim. Como, por exemplo, nós vamos ver aqueles 10 reis lá no livro de Apocalipse. Como, por exemplo, nós vemos outras 2 nações do capítulo 13 de Apocalipse. Como, por exemplo, nós vamos ver no capítulo 12 de Apocalipse, o anticristo. Satanás aparecendo ali, lançando água da boca da Roma, o dragão. Então, quando nós falamos dele, apesar da natureza ser a mesma, mas fica difícil falar, mas quem é então o anticristo? É Roma? É nos Estados Unidos da América? É o líder do conselho da igreja? Quem é? São todos eles. São todos eles. Vocês entendem? Então, quando se fala então em profecia, fica mais difícil ainda, porque de quem está falando? Está falando daquele que está em Roma ou está falando daquele que está na América? Vocês entenderam onde que eu quero chegar? Fica difícil. E é isso que torna as profecias complicadas às vezes de nós entender. E o novo Papa for apresentado aos Estados Unidos e posto lá de acordo com a profecia, então eles formarão uma imagem semelhante à besta. E vou lhes dizer, a verdadeira igreja de Deus se ajuntará. Não é? E aí ele vai falando aqui, ele diz, vai aparecer um Papa lá nos Estados Unidos, vai. Já tivemos aí preliminar, como ele disse, preliminar, uma demonstraçãozinha como que vai ser. Sabe o que nós estamos vendo aqui? É profecia de que vai aparecer, sabe o que neste país? Uma ditadura. Fica vendo, já tivemos as doses aí. Alguém que já tinha ficado lá atrás. Lá em 1933, até 1945. Roosevelt já tinha ficado no poder. Olha, ele já tinha dado a demonstração do que viria a seguir. O que está chegando aí? Um papa. O que é um papa? Um ditador. Uma ditadura. Mas quem é que está por detrás dessa ditadura? Quem é que está por detrás disto? Sabia que nunca ninguém governou em Israel sendo mulher, a não ser em período de transição e na esfera militar, como Débora junto com Baraque, mas a Atália governou Israel, mudou a Constituição. A igreja é quem mandava, a igreja evangélica, a filha de Jezabel. Ela que mandava, ela que perseguia, ela que mandou matar todos da casa da descendência real de Judá, mandou matar todo mundo. Tá chegando aí na tribulação, vai mandar matar todo mundo.
In Scotland, Trump wanted rid of several houses.
Sarah, I want to get rid of that house.
It's going to create a bit of a stir, but if we're not...
Who cares? Who cares? You know what? Who cares?
He's no time for ordinary people. He's too much concerned about making dollars himself.
He doesn't have no heart, that man. The only thing he has is what he's worried about himself.
And it's important, I think, to remember they're living not just with the impact of what Trump did to them, but living in the full knowledge that Trump may also be planning things behind their backs.
We dealt with our objectors very harshly, and we will continue to be very strong to anybody that stands in our way.
We're up in North Carolina, we're up in many, many polls nationwide. The Los Angeles Times has us up 6 points. And we're up in
Poor fellow, he had a wee breakdown.
Iowa, we're up 8 points.
Only 8 weeks before the presidential election, the Forbes receive an alarming letter from the local government.
And amazing.
Surely they wouldn't be so stupid as to try again.
It's the new master plan for the area.
It's obvious on the plan there. It's all in red. My place is not marked off, you know? So they must be claiming this is Trump's place.
It revives memories of the first time Donald Trump tried to force residents out of their homes to build hundreds of millionaire houses.
You have called him a fraud, a con artist. You've said he's a New Yorker like you, and you have watched this brand of BS for decades, and despite that, he became president. And now we're watching him, 10 blocks from where we are right now, sitting in a courtroom as a criminal defendant. What do you think about that?
I think of how absurd it is. And this might be the one case where that could be it for him. It's a state case. It's the least important in many ways, and yet it's the one that could be tried and finished in well enough time for people to just take that in.
Does it give you some sense, not of joy, but of relief at least, that he's potentially facing some consequences? Because as you've said before, this guy's a con artist and he's gotten away with it for years.
No, he's more than that to me. He's sick. He is really, genuinely a sick person that somehow has been allowed into our system. And I'm not calling him, I'm tired of calling him names. He just can't be anywhere near the office of the presidency.
You've played a lot of bad guys. Would you ever play Donald Trump?
Never. There's nothing about him. There's not one redeeming thing in him that I can see ever. And it's funny, I was just thinking that he actually became president. He could have done good things. Instead, he had to do it all wrong. He's so, as we all know, so narcissistic and self-centered.
What do you say to those who say, I don't like the guy, but I'm going to vote for him? What's your message to them?
I don't understand it. I don't think they understand how dangerous it will be if he ever, God forbid, becomes president. I don't think they really understand. And historically, from what I see, even in Nazi Germany, they had it with Hitler. They don't take him serious. He looks like a clown, acts like a clown. Mussolini, same thing. These guys, I don't know why, they look like clowns. They somehow, people, that element of society identifies in some ways with them, but it would be chaos beyond our imagination. There's no mystery about him. He's right out front, and what he says is what it'll be if he becomes president.
Do you think our democracy is at risk in this election?
I think that it is. I always keep saying, democracy is great, of course, but democracy people take for granted. It's a word that some people don't even understand. They take it for granted. It's about right and wrong, period. The guy's a monster. It's beyond wrong. It's almost like he wants to do the most horrible things that he can think of in order to get a rise out of us. I don't know what it is, but he's been doing it, and it's scary.
Are you?
Excuse my French.
Do you have any concerns for the future of the arts if you were to become president? He has already said he wants to go after his enemies. He wants to go after journalists and the news media. Mm-hmm. What about your industry?
I believe he will. The only thing that I would think is that what'll happen is that he'll go after these things like he always impulsively, and he'll be stopped. There'll be pushback, a lot of it, and there might be as much pushback as needed, like in the streets, conflict that could happen, civil strife, because, but he will try it.
You have no upside in having this conversation, in speaking out against Donald Trump. You are making yourself a target. The interview will air and he will immediately find a reason to talk bad about you in public.
Yeah.
But you're choosing to use your platform to do so. What do you say to other celebrities who don't want to alienate part of their fan base, don't want to step in harm's way, but they have similar megaphones that you do?
You know, the idea to be bullied at my age by someone like this is not happening.
I'm pretty sure you were never bullied.
No, there was a kid sometime, this, that, but the point is not, and for the country, no. And I think other people are going to have to stand up and just, because it's either that or you're going to find yourself in a situation that's so terrifying. We always hear about people from Eastern Europe, the Jews from other parts of Eastern Europe, from Western Europe, coming over. Look what happened in France with the Nazis and so on. And they come over, and you hear these, and when I was a kid, they'd say, "You don't really appreciate this country. You don't really appreciate what we know from experience." Imagine what those people went through. I'm just starting to see it. You know, as a kid, I said, Hitler, it's a nightmare that never would happen. But now I see that it's possible. And what those people, and sometimes I run into some people who are close to my age, who are from Eastern Europe, European countries, or even Nazi Germany, and you know, you understand it.
Did you ever care this much about politics?
No, I don't. I mean, I'm sort of not indifferent, but it's not my, but I'm so angry about what's going on. I don't see how it can be avoided.
Do you think Joe Biden's the right guy?
We don't have a choice. And I think he is the right guy. He's a good guy. He's trying to do the right thing. And we don't have a choice. And I say that in a very positive, good way.
Then what would be your message to President Biden?
Keep up the fight, keep at him, go at him hard, and every chance you get, go at him. Go at him, because people, they take notice of that stuff. And don't be, he's not afraid, but he's doing what he should do. He knows that. That's the only way. I use figuratively when I say punch him in the face. Go at him. A bully, you punch in the face. The trouble with Trump is he's not just a bully, he's a stupid bully.
You warned America about who Donald Trump was in 2016. You're a lifetime New Yorker, so is he, and you said the country does not realize who this fraudster is, and not enough people listened. Do you think they'll listen now?
I hope to God they do, because they don't. If it goes the other way, I keep saying this, you will see things that, like you'll see, it's like invasion of the body snatchers. You'll see people you knew or you thought you knew all of a sudden changing, all of a sudden going with that side, either for self-preservation, because they actually believe it, or they're deluding themselves or whatever. But then when that happens and you walk into a restaurant, you see people you used to know, all of a sudden they're just not opposing it. They're going with the flow. And that's even more scary, insidious, I guess, if you say it like that, and ultimately just depressingly disappointing. There has to be a time when you have to say, okay, that's it. No, we're not doing that. We're not allowing that to happen. And this is the time in this country for that to happen.
Then this moment is about decency and democracy to you?
It's decency and right and wrong, and democracy follows. You have to know how to behave in order to make the democracy work.
Safety. I am concerned. Where do I go?
And you should be.
Well, good. Where do you go? We'll be neighbors.
Well, I'd welcome you there. I'm going to move to Amsterdam. I don't feel safe, and you shouldn't feel safe. But here's the interesting thing, Michael. There are a lot of people who shouldn't feel safe. When an authoritarian leader takes power, they go after their enemies, and they do it in the way that Putin did.
Right. All of their enemies.
You know? All of their enemies, and they get more and more paranoid, and, just watch Putin just, go and take it back to many other dictators. I think Trump, not necessarily because he does this consciously, but I think Trump sort of thinks of himself as the equivalent of Mussolini. I think that he will round up people. I think he will try to subvert every form of the government that he can in the service of consolidating his power. The one hope I would have about Trump as president is he's not smart and he's very, very emotionally volatile. I don't know if he has remotely the discipline and the focus necessary to do the level of damage that he'd like to do.
Oh, I don't know. I hope that you're right, but I'm not 100% certain that I agree with that. In fact, it's because that he is not smart that he's even more dangerous, because what he intends to do, and again, these are not Michael Cohen's words. These are not Tony Schwartz's words. These are his words. He is going to attempt to consolidate all power of the government by stripping the legislative branch and the judiciary of their co-equal powers, confer it upon the executive branch, making him the king, the monarch, the ruler, and so on. But what he also said that is extremely concerning and should be rightfully said by you, a lot of people, is that he intends to use SEAL Team 6 to round up his enemies, his detractors, his critics. And there are many of them. He talked about General Mark Milley. He talked about the president of MSNBC. He talked about a bunch of journalists, right? From the Washington Post to the New York Times and across the entire gambit. Because he's not smart, and he now has everybody signing these loyalty oaths to him, which to me, again, is crazy that a president is demanding loyalty the way a king or a supreme leader would, that he's going to use that and just do massive global roundups. You know, it's really, to be honest with you, it's demented thinking. And I'm saddened, I really am, and I'm concerned, but I'm saddened about the fact that there are Americans who truly don't think about what Donald says. They're just all in. They're all in for the cult.
Yeah, they're not in rationally, we both would agree. It's not coming from their head. It's not coming from logic. It's not coming from any kind of genuine awareness of who the man is that they're all in for. So it is cultish, as it always is with authoritarian leaders, and he's rewritten the playbook for dismantling democracy in the United States. Nobody thought it was possible before. If there's anything Trump's good at, it's rallying people around an insane cause and an insane person. You know, it's interesting to think, Michael, just to go to your earlier point, it's interesting to think about the list of enemies that he has and take you back to Nixon's enemies list, which was, you know, relatively modest in size. I wonder, does he have a written enemies list? And is he already got people planning that roundup? I wouldn't be surprised at all. And I wouldn't even be surprised if it has an order in which he plans to do it. Because, vengeance and domination are the two driving motivations for him, other than money, that animate his life.
Yeah, especially the retribution. He's a firm believer, and I'm sure you've heard him say this many times as well. If you come at me, if you hit me, and I don't know why he constantly uses that word, but if you hit me, I'm going to hit you back 10 times harder. So, for example, telling the truth, by being a subpoenaed non-party witness against him, I am now an enemy. I'm an enemy. Of course. Forget about the fact that he did nothing within which to protect me himself, threw me to the wolves, but I should then get chomped up by the wolves, ignored, right? Now here I am, subpoenaed by government to testify. I will tell absolutely the truth. It doesn't benefit him, the truth, and so he's going to try to hit me 10 times harder. That's his game plan.
He has.
That's who he is. You know, and now there's the stag order. Yeah. You know, there's the stag order that's going to be coming out the day after this podcast airs. So we don't know, obviously, what the result is going to be. But I am hopeful that Judge Merchan holds Donald's feet to the fire, because he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows the dog whistle that he's blowing, and he knows whom is listening to it, his MAGA supporters. And I really don't want to be that test case. I am concerned. You know, the level of hate that has been coming at me since he put out these posts, it's intensified by at least 500%. I don't want to be the test where everybody's like, yeah, we should have actually done something, right? They need to start protecting witnesses too.
Yeah, it does feel a little 1939-ish in this moment. And, you know, to make these analogies to Hitler is a huge leap. But I really think that Trump is limited in what he does only by the ability to get it done. That there is, as is true with all sociopaths and most authoritarian leaders, there is no conscience involved here. There's no guilt. And boy, you are freed to a lot of awful behaviors if guilt and shame are not in your vocabulary. But I have a question for you. My question for you is, as you think of these folks who are part of this cult, and you think of how do you loosen the hold and that they, or the connection that they have with him, when you think back to your being part of that cult, what explained against all rationality for you why it made sense? Because if you can answer that, it's a window into what could be understood by not the most extreme versions of MAGA, whatever you call it.
Maggots.
But certainly by people who are not absolutely sure which way to go.
It's because there's something missing in people's lives. There was something missing in my life. It wasn't money, right? And it wasn't power or money. It was excitement. It was star power. There's a big difference. So when I first joined, and I want to be clear about this, when I was knee deep in this dumpster cult of Trump, he was a myopic real estate guy. You know, he was a television celebrity with The Apprentice. You know, he had the Miss Universe, doing some really kind of smallish real estate deals. You know, it was exciting. It was very different than those that ended up joining the cult when he's president, where every single thing that comes out of his mouth has not just a national implication, but an international implication. When I joined the Trump org, the first thing he said to me is, "You're going to be my special counsel. You're going to specifically work and answer only to me." And I felt that was a tremendous honor, right? It's Donald Trump, for God's sakes. Then he had me put together this entire deal for the NCAP Golf Redevelopment Project, which was a 1,000-acre landfill remediation. I've never done anything like that. So for me, it was stimulating because I was interested in figuring this thing out, building 10,000 units, building a city, literally, that would look like Crystal City out of a movie. One stop to New York City. And it was exciting. He put me on the board of the Miss Universe organization. It was only him, Alan Weisselberg, and me, right? On top of that, he made me co-president of Trump Productions. So I was working with the folks as well on The Apprentice and finding people. It was exciting. And I was missing that in my life. I was missing that Donald Trump star power when you walk downstairs with him to go grab a freaking burger. All of a sudden, you know, just the crowd started. And while I understood that they weren't taking pictures of me, the fact that you're in that circle, right, that, or as like in Meet the Fockers, right, that circle of trust, it was very, very exciting. And you kind of don't want to leave the circle. So you end up doing things. It's very different than the maggots right now who are in the cult. They're in the cult mostly because they're trying to keep white privilege. Donald talks to white privilege. He talks about racism and sexism. He talks about misogyny and xenophobia, homophobia, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism. So these folks that have this ingrained hatred, right, for anybody that's different, Donald is their leader.
Yeah, and you know, the fact is that when people have hatred, I don't think hatred is what is at the base of your in your core. I don't think it's what you're born with. I think it's something that emerges from your conditioning, from your socialization, from your experience, maybe from not getting the kind of caretaking you need. I think actually that the folks who feel this, the message you've just shared is you can't get from outside what you're missing inside.
Yep.
And that, I think, is the biggest single learning from what we're seeing now. If you think that more money or more status or more power or more connections or more fame is going to make you feel fundamentally better, you are screwed.
That's what he cares about. You agree?
Completely. I mean, you know, that applies to the very, very rich. They're the most vulnerable. I mean, just look at what happens in Russia. I mean, you know, if you have a ton of money, it belongs to Putin, or at least he has the ability to access it whenever he wants. And if you go against it, also Mohammed bin Salman, this is true of, like, there's only one boss. So yes, he will go after those people. Most of those people, not most of those people, some of those people you just named, I suspect, understand that risk. John Paulson clearly doesn't, because he's throwing the fundraisers. Jeff Bezos isn't throwing fundraisers for Trump.
But they're supporting him. The Elon Musks of the world, like for example, on his X platform, they're supporting him. I've never seen anything. Yes. Understand Elon Musk. Let's say he's worth $300 billion, right? An obscene amount of money. You know better than most what that does to Donald's psyche. He can't figure out why Elon Musk is worth $300 billion, and he's basically, in his mind, he knows what he's really worth. $1.2 billion, $1.3 billion, $1.4 billion, right? He doesn't understand it. What's the easiest way to become worth $300 billion? And you have all the power in the world. You are the dictator, the monarch, the Führer, the supreme leader of America. What's the easiest thing to do?
Take theirs.
If I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole... That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least.
Obrigada por ter assistido o vídeo até o final. Eu peço que, por favor, compartilhe, se inscreva, clique no sininho para receber notificações de mais vídeos, deixe um joinha e também um Deus abençoe para este canal. Vivemos nos tempos finais. Deus te abençoe e Shalom.